This is the ALGO Podcast, episode 13, with Lola Okeefe. Lola lives with Tourette's syndrome and something called FND, functional neurological disorder, also called compulsion disorder. This episode focuses on what her life has been like to accept, diagnose, and live with these conditions side by side, how fitness has actually played a big role in it. We cover the Tourette support group that her and her family run, and we dive into the day-to-day struggle, some of the darks, the lows, and the lights, and the highs that she has experienced in her life as a result of this, and a little bit of how it's made her who she is. Hopefully you find this episode educational and informative. I know I did. Neighbors were doing some construction, so apologies if the drilling is audible, and at some point near the end, the doorbell rings very loudly, and I forgot that the speaker is right here, so I will try and mute it down in the audio. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below, and we will see you next time. You have Tourette's and FND.
Yes.
What is it?
Ask Google. No,
Yeah.
joking. So Tourette's is obviously like involuntary movements and sounds, which we call tics. And FND. FND is quite complicated, and I think there's a lot of like research about it, but it's basically your brain and your body missend and your brain and body send and receive signals. So there's like a crosswire in your nervous system, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a way to describe your branch of FND? Like, is it grouped into categories, or it's just all a big umbrella term?
It's not really, it's quite an umbrella term, but there are so many different aspects and severities that people have it on. Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
So there's so many different symptoms. Like a lot of people can actually be paralyzed, or some people have tics caused by FND, not rather than Tourette's. It can cause seizures, which is something I suffer from. Loss, like your limbs don't work properly, and you get like shakes and stuff. So it's actually quite complicated because it mirrors a lot of other like conditions. Like if you've got the shakes, it looks like Parkinson's, or if you have seizures, it looks like epilepsy. But yeah, so it's quite difficult to explain.
What are the symptoms that you have?
I have seizures. My limbs lock sometimes, so like my ankles and my wrists like lock in uncomfortable positions sometimes, and that can either last like hours or days. Pretty much.
The idea of a limb locking is foreign to a lot of people, myself
Yes.
included. How would you actually describe that? Like, what does it feel when your body locks up?
It's as if it's very similar kind of a feeling to like when you come out of a seizure or a fit, like
Something that most people also have.
also experience, yeah.
Yeah.
Your muscles just feel extremely tight. So imagine like clenching really, really, really tight, and you know how all your muscles tense up and everything hurts? It's a bit like that, but you can't get out of it.
Is it kind of like if you're doing an exercise and you cramp, but times 20 and you're stuck?
Yes, exactly that. Yeah.
Well, the only experience with that I had is like 2 years ago, I had a cramp in my quad, and then as I stretched it, I then got a cramp in my hamstring, so I couldn't go either way.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's like 50,000 times worse than that, but that's the closest I've got to it. You mentioned that the symptoms are very similar to other stuff.
Yes.
We'll go into a bit of your timeline of diagnosis, but was an element of you being diagnosed a lot of misdiagnosis in the beginning?
Surprisingly not. I was quite lucky.
Oh.
I was referred to one of the top neurologists at St. George's, so I got very, very lucky, I think, with my consultant, who like took a long time before like diagnosing anything. So.
Do you know if other people in similar situations to you had less fortune and they were misdiagnosed a lot more?
Definitely. There's a lot of people people can be diagnosed with PANDAS, which is an autoimmune
Do you know what that stands for?
infection. No, I can Google
It's not
it,
a test,
but-
it's okay.
No.
PANDAS.
Yeah, so it's basically if you get like strep throat or something, you get an infection and it causes swelling in your brain. So that can mirror other symptoms. Yeah. So or if you have tics, it can look like Tourette's, like I was saying, or epilepsy. So like they have to do like, I had an awful lot of, what they're called, EEGs done on my brain to like look at like if there was any epileptic activity, like, and to see like seizure-wise what was going
So
on.
FND can cause tics as well?
Yeah.
That would probably make it complicated given that you've been diagnosed with Tourette's as well.
Yeah.
Was there ever a misdiagnosis with the Tourette's, or they kind of just figured out you have both?
Well,
What was the
my
timeline?
Timeline was, so I started ticking when I was around 8. And then it was very much, my family didn't really notice it at first until I got to probably about 11 or 12. And then when we look back, it was like, actually I've ticked my whole life, but it was things that were very like exactly what you are doing right now. Literally blinking, eye blinking, nose scrunching, a little squeal every now and then. And that's very like typical children or like childlike movements and things. So it was quite difficult to define like, oh, you have tics. And also like childhood tics are extremely common. So yeah, and then when I started getting, my first tic that got really bad was my neck would jerk like very violently. And then I started whistling, and that was when I first went to the doctors when I was around like 11.
How do they figure out the difference between a tic and a stim? Because since my childhood, I've had lots of different stims. Like sometimes it's like heavy blinking. Sometimes I would make noises like with my throat. I'd do like a... I just always do that. I'd stretch my mouth.
There's a certain
big eye tic.
There's a certain feeling that you get before you have a tic, and it's like preliminary. This is one word I literally can never say.
Is it preliminary?
I think so. Something urge.
Yeah.
I can never say
preliminary urge.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Considering I've had this condition my whole life and I still cannot say the word. Yes, it's like a feeling that you get. People kind of experience it in different places, but for me, it's like at the back of my neck, and it's like a weird urging sensation, and that you always get that before a tic.
What does the urge feel like? Because urge in the neck like could mean so many things.
It's a bit like, I always explain tics to people in the sense of like having a really bad itch that you can't scratch. So it's like, you know, you've got that feeling that you need to itch and it's like on your skin. That's a bit like what the urge is like. And then ticking is sort of as if like scratching your arm. So it's like relieving that sensation.
I would guess that urge also exists like on a spectrum.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's a really, really big urge, sometimes barely noticeable. So is there a chance, or I don't know if this is like an established fact or not, that people who stim a lot might just have very, very mild Tourette's? Is there a chance of that, or still very different?
I don't think so. They're quite different because for Tourette's, it's genetic. So you are born with it, like in your genes. And your basal ganglia, which is something in your nervous system, is actually constantly malfunctioning, which is what causes your tics.
Is it fair to say that someone with Tourette's, like, I don't know, something like meditation, for example, you hear all kinds of stuff about it. If it's concrete Tourette's, that it's not possible for them to just will it to stop.
Whoa, wait, what?
Is it possible that if it's proper Tourette's compared to a stim, that they are not able to just like through willpower make it stop? What role does willpower play in it? Like if I'm someone who is for some reason thinking, is it a stim or do I have Tourette's? Yeah. And they just sit down for 10 minutes and try their hardest to not do anything. Yeah. And it works. Is that like a really weak test to see, okay, it's not Tourette's?
It's kind of difficult because there's a thing called suppression, which some people with Tourette's can do and some people can't. So it's a bit like holding in a cough. So I always say, you know, like in the middle of the pandemic and you went into a shop and you've got this awful cough and you're like, don't cough, don't cough, don't cough, don't cough. And it's like you can hold it in until you get out that shop, and then as soon as you're out, you let it all out. That's a bit like what suppressing a tic is like. So some people can and some people can't. I personally can, but it took like years of cognitive behavior therapy to train me to do it. So it's basically just getting comfortable with that feeling of having that urge. But with Tourette's, it has to come out at some point. So that's either if you get to like a safe space or you're home, or like it can't stay suppressed, if that makes sense. It has to come out. During
your cognitive behavioral therapy, was it just developing the ability to suppress it for a bit longer? Like give you a bigger reservoir to store it in before you let it out?
Yeah, pretty much.
What was that therapy like? What kind of coping mechanisms did they help you develop?
It's quite difficult to explain because it's like retraining your brain in a weird way to try and like, I don't know how to it's retraining your brain. So if I had a massive tic, sometimes my back completely arches back, and that can be quite like a really difficult tic to deal with in public. So it sort of retrains your brain to have that urge and turn it into a smaller tic, like a head jerk.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
like redirect
You
that
redirect
energy to
it.
something else.
Yeah.
How did they make you do it? So what was the actual CBT? Like, what did you do?
It basically just took an awful. We had like timers and things, and we had to get very comfortable with that urge feeling, and we had to sit there, and you just had. It's really weird to explain, but there's certain feelings that you get of where the tic's going to happen. So like if it's in my back, often my neck gives us some similar sensations, so it half relieves the tic, and then you basically just have to figure out for yourself what other tic gives you that feeling that's just slightly smaller.
Interesting. How long did what was because the only thing I can compare it to is the gym, where you start off no gains, and then you've got like the newbie gains where you progress the fastest you ever have, and then it plateaus. I'm guessing it wasn't like that for CBT. I'm guessing it was a very slow, painful process.
Yeah.
What kind of milestones, if any, did you have? Would it all kind of hit at once and you were able? Was it just small steps along the way?
I think for me it was very small stepping stones. I think not everyone gets on with it, and it's not a thing that some people can. Some people, the feeling is so uncomfortable and horrible to them that they don't do it, because it's just, I think a lot of people are more happy to tic than they are to suppress. So I think it's definitely like a personal personal preference. Yeah.
Are you still in CBT? Or
no, I did it for 2 years, from the ages of 12 to 14.
Do you remember any of the milestone moments that you did have? Like something would happen and you would just catch yourself and be like, oh, that's progress, that's nice.
Yeah, I think they sort of tested you with like how long you could go with the urge. And I think for me now, like I can sit through lectures and not tic at all. But often people think, oh, that's kind of cool. So it's like you can control it, but you can't control it, but you can suppress it, is how they say it, to like a certain degree. But then people don't see all the effort that it takes. It makes you really, really tired to suppress. Like you are exhausted. It takes so much energy and like brain power and will to do it, that often like I could suppress throughout a whole lecture, but then I probably will not have actually absorbed any of the information that I should have been focusing on, because I was so focused on suppressing.
What is the tiredness like? Is it like, if you were to compare it to an activity that other people have done and they feel exhausted at the end of, is there a comparison you can do? Like an intense study session for 2 hours, that feeling, or like? It's
as if doing an intense study session and then having run half a marathon.
Ooh.
So it's like your brain and your body is just so fatigued and exhausted.
So it takes a physical toll as well.
Massive, yeah.
Ooh.
So it's as if like you've got a price to pay, if that makes sense, like for doing it, yeah.
So it's suppressing and it's like delaying the inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So some people don't really not like disagree with it, but they just think they'd much rather tic and then not have to deal with like the consequences of it afterwards.
It's like you have you're suffering either way. You just choose which one, and they choose that one. Okay.
Wow.
What are some of the misconceptions and stereotypes that exist around Tourette's? Because I imagine there aren't that many around FND, because most people don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
But everyone kind of just thinks, oh, Tourette's is like the one where you just swear or punch people, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think media coverage is a massive thing with Tourette. So I think most people think you're swearing, well, the swearing tic's called coprolalia, and only 10% of the population with Tourette's actually have that swearing tic. However, that's the most advertised, I think. That's probably the main misconception, or the fact that you tic 24/7. Every day is so different with Tourette's. Like some days I could hardly tic at all. And it'd be very unnoticeable pretty much. It would just be like little things like whistling, saying wow. Or other days I can be having severe tic attacks, where like you get a tic attack's basically like a massive surge of like energy that you get, but like uncomfortable energy, and you are constantly ticking to the point where you probably can't actually speak. For me, that involved like punching myself, hitting walls, screaming, shouting, and like just all tics. So yeah.
How did you go about identifying what makes tics worse? Because it's hard to isolate a single thing in your life because you're living your life every single day.
Yeah.
What for you? There's the drill. I'm hoping the mics don't pick up on it, but hey ho.
I think it's different for everyone. Like some people find, like for me, stress really makes my tics worse, like majorly, or when I'm anxious, boom. Any actual strong emotion makes my tics worse. So if I get really, really like excited and nervous, I'll start ticking a lot more. And then if I get like really, when I'm upset, I don't tick much. And when I'm angry, I don't tick much.
That's interesting.
Well, actually that depends. Sometimes I'll tick loads if I'm angry and sometimes I won't tick at all.
Does it depend on the type of anger? Because sometimes you've got like a calm, strong anger, but then there's like a seething rage.
Yeah, I feel like if it's rage, I won't be ticking. But if it's that kind of like calm anger, I'm like, yeah.
Do you know why? Is it just because your energy is focused on not raging and doing conscious stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think often in the media, they sort of show like it's funny in a weird way, which I think I personally do have coprolalia tics. So I do tick a lot of like swear words and funny like things or like taboo words and sentences, but people don't really realize the impact that has on you. Like when I first started getting coprolalia, I think I was 13 and I was dreading it. Like it was the one tic that I didn't want to get. And unfortunately I did. And I had it so severely for about 2 years. And it was horrible. I was terrified to leave my house because you don't know what you're gonna say, like at all. So I hear what I've ticked, well, tits, the exact same time that you do.
Like that?
Yeah. And tics are very suggestible. So I think that's the misconception. It's got nothing to do with your thought process, but often it links to what the brain is seeing and processing, if that makes sense, like your subconscious in a weird way. So I think even having to like go to the supermarket, the looks that you'd get, or like that was also when I was still in cognitive behavior therapy, so I was still learning to like deal with my Tourette's in a weird way. And that was like, I had no control over it back then. So everything was just coming out completely. And the looks were like, I'm quite like a self-conscious person in the sense of I would never want to offend somebody. I think that was what I was most worried about, what I could say and if that would hurt someone else's feelings, I guess.
Is it... Once you developed that aspect of the Tourette's, what was it like to get this development? Because you said it's something you were dreading, that it was the one thing you didn't get, and you did.
Yeah.
What was the process of accepting that, okay, this is something I have? Because was it like the first moment that the symptoms came up and that type showed itself, you're like, great, I have it? Or was there a bit of denial, like, it's probably just something else?
Definitely. I went through a huge deal of denial about it, and I did not want to leave my house. I wouldn't go anywhere. I think it was probably for a good 6 months, it was really, really rough. Like I think on my family as well, because it like impacted everything that they wanted to do like as a family, because I just wouldn't want to go out. And then I think my first swear word was fuck. And fuckity fuck, that was what I first said. And it was like, shit, I can't believe I have just said that. Like, I can't believe that's just come out my mouth. And I think that was the start of it for me. And then I definitely went through a period where I was in massive denial about it.
How did fuckity fuck come out? Like, where were you? What were you doing? Who were you with?
In the car with my mum and my little brother. And we just said it and we all sort of looked to each other and went, shit.
It's here.
It's here. I was on my way to school. Yeah. And then I had really complex tics about it, where I would tic to like my head teacher about bringing my drug dealer to school and like...
That was a tic?
Oh yeah. I said that to my head teacher. I asked if he wanted to buy weed from my drug dealer, Larry.
Cool. Yeah. How did the head teacher react to that?
kind of just laughed at and ignored. I think that's the thing. Yes, there is a funny part of having Tourette's and coprolalia. Like, you have to laugh to get through it. But then there's also that element of like people understanding and laughing with you rather than at you. And I think it took me a long time, but like the advice that I sort of give to myself and other people now, especially with coprolalia, is like, I think you don't mean the words that is coming out your mouth. So technically it has no context and meaning, in the sense of me saying something like a swear word or something maybe rude or homophobic or something that definitely like is not me at all, is as if I'm taking the word banana, because it has no meaning. Without me purposely trying to say that, and with the context, it's just another word. It's just another vowels of sounds, I think, is what I sort of have to tell myself. And I think that was the thing that kind of got me through it, of like, it's not actually me saying these things and I have absolutely no control over it, so what's the point in not being able to live my life properly because it's something I can't control.
How did you get to that point? Because the idea of, yeah, I'm saying these things but I don't mean it and I'm not intending to say it, but I'm sure it's caused a lot of problems before, depending on who you say it, what the context is. How, like, was it a particular person who gave you that advice? Was it a collective of people who were maybe older and had learned to cope with the condition more?
I think it was time. As like generic as that sounds in a weird way, I think my mum has been my biggest like supporter throughout my whole journey. She's my best friend. And I think my mum was with me 24/7. Like, we were constantly always together. And I think it was something that we sort of like talked about an awful lot, and I think she was probably my rock through it all, because when I was so embarrassed to go out, she didn't have a care in the world. She would walk next to me and people would be looking, people would be worrying, I'd be worrying what I was going to say, and she always held her head up, like, and never even cared. And I think seeing my mum be able to do that was sort of a bit like, do you know what, it's fine, like, it's going to be okay. And I think that the fact that she wasn't embarrassed helped me not be embarrassed. Yeah. She
was an inspiration to you.
Still is, yeah.
That's really nice. I would imagine that the journey you would have gone down, personally, would have been completely different if she wasn't there.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I don't think I'd be as comfortable and here, like, the way I am if it wasn't for my mum. She put like an awful lot of effort in. She went and joined like parental support groups and things and got advice from other parents, and like she went to seminars and things, and she like educated herself an awful lot, which helped me out. I think also educating yourself on your own condition is like a big thing as well, because I think it helps you sort of understand like what's going on with your body and what, because I think sounds really weird, I feel like every single person with Tourette's, I've had this conversation with quite a few other people, it's like, am I purposely doing this or not? Because it's like, it's a weird feeling to explain, but I feel like you always think about it in a weird way, because it's like your body's doing it and you can feel your body doing it, but it's like, it's obviously, you know, you're not in control of it, but like, because your body's doing it, you think, oh, like, am I purposely doing that in a weird way? Yeah.
Especially if you don't understand what's going on with you, and it's something that extreme, because you're going to be asking all kinds. You're going to gaslight yourself. Like, do I mean this?
Yeah.
Is this real?
Yeah,
am I just mean and I don't realize it?
Yeah.
Why am I being mean? Stop being mean.
Yeah.
How the thing that interests me.
Wow.
I mean, amongst everything.
Yeah.
Because you've got FND and the Tourette's.
Yeah.
What came first? How did they distinguish between the two? Because there's a big overlap with the symptoms.
So for me, ticking obviously first started, like I said before, when I was around 8, and then I got diagnosed when I was 11. And I was diagnosed at St George's by one of the top neurologists, which is why I was quite lucky. And I was on her books for a long time, and I'd see her every 6 months for like a review and stuff and see how things were going. And then when I was maybe 14, I think, when my FND started, and I started blacking out a lot, like all the time. And it was a bit like a fainting episode, but I'd faint for longer periods of time than like a typical faint would last. So it was as if I was blacking out. So we went back to my consultant, and then probably a month or two later, I had my first seizure when I was at school. And I was taken to hospital in an ambulance. And then I had a consultant, and then I had like an appointment with my consultant. And obviously there was lots of things we were trying to figure out what it was. My mum took an awful lot of videos, which I think help, because she took videos of all my ticking, of all my fits and everything.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. So
for the
consultant, yeah, because I think, yes, you can be somewhere, but like obviously if they're not watching it happen first person, it's quite difficult for them to distinguish the difference. Whoa. And for tic-wise, there's a big difference between FND tics and Tourette tics. So Tourette's is genetic, FND is not. So with Tourette's, your basal ganglia is malfunctioning. With FND, it's actually a wire in, like, your brain has created its own like little neuropath, and I think it keeps missending a signal, and it keeps going round and round in a loop in a weird way, which makes you tic. With Tourette tics, you often tic like mid-sentence and things. So like if I'll be talking to you and I tic and then carry on speaking, whether FND tics usually actually end up happening after you finish your sentence. So it's sort of in like...
Interesting. So it's like when your brain's relaxed a bit and it's not focusing on the next thing you say,
yeah,
then the tic sneaks in?
Yeah.
But with the Tourette's, it kind of just pops up whenever?
Whenever, yeah. FND tics are actually more common in girls, and Tourette's is more common. Tourette's is 3 times more common in boys than it is girls.
Do they know why?
No. But yeah. It's actually a lot rarer for a girl to have Tourette's than a boy.
You're special.
Yeah, lucky me.
Lucky you. Okay.
Ciao.
So, actually, before moving on, is there any specific medication or drugs that exist for something like this, or is it all just CBT and
that's usually
conscious control?
Yeah, that's always like the first option for people. It's quite a controversial topic, I think. There are meds available.
I love
controversial.
But
they're not necessarily for, like, specifically meds for Tourette's. They are often anti-psychotics, which either help people, it like suppresses their tics in a weird way, but it can make you quite like zombie-like and like strip away your personality, I think. And they're very, very strong meds.
Yeah.
For something that might not actually make a difference to your tics. I was offered the path of meds, but I chose not to. I go down the supplement route, so I'm on like a lot of things. Magnesium, Guna Brain, some like...
Guna Brain?
Yeah, don't ask. They're these
Guna
like...
a thing? Like the brain of Guna, or is that one word? Or?
I don't actually know. It's like the brand that I take, but
okay.
My mum's done like all the research into like everything that could possibly be good. And I'm on this sort of like mushroom, which helps with like brain concentration and relaxing the nervous system. So I think I sort of went down that path, but yeah.
Do you need a prescription for that, or you just get it?
You can get it.
I'd like some of that mushroom, please. How did you... Because it's not just a choice to make. It's like, okay, no drugs for me, done. It's a conscious choice you have to keep making.
Yeah. Especially
in the lowest of the lows, where I'm sure it seems like a very tempting option. Even if it might not seem promising, there's that part of your brain that's like, well, what if it does work? Yeah. Like, I'm tired of this. It might be the answer. How did you keep saying no to it?
It's a good question. I think it's really hard, but I think the point in my life where I was really considering meds was from the age of 14 to 16, and I was actually hospitalised because of my Tourette's and FND, because it was like that severe that I couldn't even sit still to have a conversation because my tics were like so severe, and I was having so many seizures a day. I was having maybe about 15. So I ended up dropping out of school, and I was hospital schooled by home tutors.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But that was definitely when I was thinking, should I just take the meds and maybe they'd help, because it was like a very low point in my life. But I know my body really, really well, and I'm very sensitive to any type of like medication and things, and I just knew that it would probably have a worse effect on my body than it would. I think me and my mum spoke a lot about it, and it just wasn't something that I felt I really wanted to like put in my body, or like the periods of time where I was me, I still sort of wanted to feel like me in a weird way.
I had a friend, I would assume different medications have different effects.
Wow.
Just as a reference, when you tic, would you rather I pause? Like, do you still hear what people say?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So it's all good.
I had a friend once, I would imagine anti-psychotics have different effects because it's a wide range of things.
Yeah.
But I had a friend once who was on a lovely concoction of very heavy stuff. One of them was antipsychotics, and it's kind of like you explained. She turned into a zombie, kind of, and it was like just nothing was there. So I can see why there's a controversy, because I would imagine some people think I would rather take Tourette's and I would rather have the Tourette's and express it, have it express whatever, and still be me, rather than take that away and also take away who I am, because then I'm just
I think also the meds don't necessarily actually take it away as well.
Exactly.
Like it makes minimal effect for some people, or it can help you like just a tiny bit. So I was thinking that's not worth taking me away.
The ratio is just completely towards the bad stuff.
Yeah.
With getting referred to the top neurologists, getting the homeschooled at the hospital, I would imagine a big part of all of the treatment you're able to do and how you've been able to cope with it all, the financial aspect is a big part. I would imagine it was expensive.
I actually got it all through the
NHS?
government. Yeah, the NHS.
Wow, that is surprising.
Yeah, I was severely lucky. So I had
All of
like
it?
hospital nurses come to my house and teach me my GCSEs,
Oh my God. That completely changes it. Like, genuinely, this whole time I was just thinking it was something you were able to afford. Wow.
Yeah, I think I had a great SEN teacher at my secondary school.
SEN?
SENCO, so sort of like special education needs. And she knew an awful lot of people, and I think she fought really, really hard for me with my consultant to get me. I think I've been extremely lucky, and I'm so grateful for that, because I know that there's an awful lot of people who have gone through similar experiences and haven't been able to have gotten the help and resources that I was given.
Do you ever feel feelings of guilt? Like, almost like a survivor's guilt? It's fine to say no, you don't have to, but I would imagine some people do in that situation. Not because you've done anything wrong at all, but because
not really.
you wish...
I think I was in I couldn't even get into school because I was either constantly having a fit or a tic attack, and it was horrendous. And I think I definitely feel for the people that don't get it, but weirdly I don't really feel any guilt for getting it.
You don't have to, you didn't do anything wrong, so nothing to feel guilty about. Okay, going more towards the fitness side of things.
Yes.
Because that's where I met you the first time, in the gym that we are at. I didn't know you had Tourette's or anything neurological until you explicitly said it.
Yeah.
And even then, most of the people that talk to you now in the gym do not know you have it, because obviously it's suppressed a lot more in the gym.
Yeah.
Is it something you consciously suppress, or it just kind of you don't need to? In the gym, it's like a happy place, you're just good.
Yeah, I don't need to. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, out of nearly everyone that we know in the gym, I could probably tell you maybe 2 people, including yourself, know that I actually have Tourette's. In a weird way, it's like so nice for me to be able to like come to a place and in a weird way not have people know, because I've had my whole life, and everyone I've met has always been, I've had to explain my condition and like my Tourette's to people, and which I don't mind, but it's like sometimes you're known as the girl with Tourette's, or like, oh, can you tic this? And like sometimes that people like get to know that side of you a lot more than the me that I actually am. So I think when I came to for me, I think everyone with Tourette's has something that really calms their tics down. Some people it's music, some people it's like a game like chess, some people really enjoy, which I've heard. But yeah, I know. Or yoga is a big one for some people, but yeah, for me it's the gym.
Is it the presence of exercise and physically exerting yourself? Is it the atmosphere of the people there that calms you down a little bit?
I think it's all of it. Like the gym's a place I'm very comfortable, And I think also like your brain and your body is so like in tuned with each other to focus on what you're doing, that I feel like I have sort of like the ultimate concentration and like on my body, which like really calms me down in a weird way. Yeah.
Has the level of calmness like developed and increased in the gym as you've been going to the gym longer, or as soon as you started it, it's like, oh, this is a safe haven? Or you just started it and then slowly you start to realize like, oh, I'm ticking less.
I think that was it, yeah. I think I was quite nervous when I first joined the gym because I didn't know anyone and I was quite new to...
It wasn't our gym now, is it?
Yeah.
That was the first gym you ever joined?
No, I joined the gym group with a few friends when I was like at sixth form.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't really say I knew exactly what I was doing.
You've learned a lot since then.
Yeah. But I think after... And then when I joined our gym, I think after like meeting you and like a few of the other people in the PTs, that like made me feel extremely comfortable and like helped me out and taught me so much, that it sort of became like a really safe place that made me feel really comfortable.
Well, you'll be very happy to know that no one knows you in the gym as the Tourette's girl. We know you as the one who's always smiley, always dancing, strong lower
or
body.
Clapping.
Yeah, clapping. Just bubbly in your own little world. Usually it's easy to spot you just because like instead of looking for you specifically, you just see how everyone's moving and everyone's just still what's the word?
Everyone's just standing there
Yeah.
and I'm like...
And they're just like... Dun, 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 dun. You're very easy to spot in the gym. That's good. That's really nice.
Wow.
Have your fitness goals evolved? No. Have your conditions played a part in your fitness goals? So is there, because fitness is a broad topic.
Yeah.
You've got, I don't know, cardio, CrossFit, then
Yeah.
weightlifting and strength, whatever. Is there any particular aspect of that calms you more? So the effect of going on a run, would it be the same as doing squats and hip thrusts and deadlifts?
I think so, yeah. All form of exercise does really seem to calm me down, but I think because I enjoy weightlifting most.
You just happen to do that one.
Yeah.
Because you do, was it trapeze? You do that as well. Which...
Well, not anymore, but I used to. I used to do aerial, so I did like silk and hoop and trapeze and things, and that always used to really calm me down as well. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So it's more just all exercise has an effect on you and a positive effect on you, and because of the goals that you want, whether it's aesthetics or strength.
You cunt. You'll actually find it funny to know.
Great.
My mum is whore in my phone.
Huh?
My mum is whore in my phone because I had a tick for maybe like 3 years that ticked. My mum's a whore. My dad's willy wanker. That's it. So people like closest to me in my life usually have like a name that my tics have given them.
Okay. Okay, your mum is whore on your phone. That's lovely. Okay.
Yes. Anyone ever needs it.
What was I saying? Yeah. So the particular style of training that you do now happens to just be because you also want the aesthetic changes that come with it.
Yes.
Which there's nothing wrong in saying, by the way. No shame in saying you want to look better.
I think when I first joined, I was quite worried to a certain extent because of my FND and my Tourette's, like both together. I suffer really badly from fatigue, which people don't see.
Wouldn't have guessed at all, given how much weight you normally push in. And you're like, I want to do more. I want to do more.
Yeah, I think that's like at the beginning, I was really worried about that because it is something that I suffer from. It really impacts me around like my menstrual cycle, like the week before my periods due. My fatigue and my Tourette's and my seizures all get an awful lot worse. I think because of like the hormones. But yeah, so if I go out and do something and suppress, or like I pay the consequences by like having horrendous fatigue where I can spend a week in bed and I literally cannot get out. And I think I was terrified of like trying to find that balance of pushing myself in the gym because I'd feel so great when I'm there and then paying for it like a few weeks after. But I think I've managed to find like a great balance of knowing my body, which I think is just taken time by going to the gym to figure out like what feels good for me and like when it's okay to say no, like I've had enough of this.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ha.
There's going to be a question I had. I forgot what it was. What were we saying? Gym, Tourette's. Oh, yes, the seizures.
Yeah.
Because seizures also exist on a variety and on a spectrum.
Yes.
Which ones do you have?
So I get tonic-clonics,
Which are the aggressive, shaky ones that everyone
that you drop
knows
to the
about.
floor. I think that's like the typical seizure that people know about. And then I get absent seizures where it's like it will just look like I'm completely zoned out and I will just like have actually been unconscious even though like my eyes are open. I'll just look like I'm staring at something. But it's quite difficult to explain because like with epilepsy, your brain's getting like charged with like electricity in a sense, which actually damages your brain, and it's really dangerous if your fits last more than 5 minutes. Whether for me, it's sort of like, even though they look the exact same to epileptic seizures, it's basically the opposite effect. So it's like my brain and my body have so let's say my brain sends a signal to my body and it sort of misfires in my nervous system, they don't meet, it will cause me to have a fit, which is then, sometimes my fits can last anywhere from like a few minutes to maybe a couple of hours, which is like when I've had to have been hospitalized, but not because it's damaging my brain, but because my body gets so physically exhausted that I have to get have like an injection to like calm my body down and like for me to be able to come out of it. But it's often how long it takes for like my body and my brain to like resync up again for when I come out of my fit.
If people around you were to be trained in whatever they have to, what do they do? So like as we're filming, if you drop to one right now, what do I do? I'm freaking out.
I think I've gotten to the point where now I'm quite lucky. I know the feeling of like how I feel before a fit. So I'm quite self-aware, but when it first all came, obviously I had no idea what these feelings I was feeling sort of meant. So I think the thing that is just time to get used to it. But now I know on days where I'm going to have seizures because I usually feel quite under the weather.
On the day?
Yeah, usually.
Okay.
Or in the afternoon, I can sort of like say, I'll just, it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's a bit like a weird cloud coming over you and everything about your body and your brain just feels wrong. And that's the only way I can sort of describe the feeling before a fit. And it's just like everything, usually I get very dizzy, but that's just before, and I get quite a metallic taste in my mouth. And my heart beats extremely fast just before I'm about to like go unconscious. But then basically once I'm out, now I'm able to put myself like in the recovery position myself. But before I used to just drop all the time, like up to 15 times a day. And then you put something soft under my head and just make sure I'm breathing. It's pretty much the only thing you can do. And never restrict someone if they're fitting, because that actually can often cause it to get more violent.
Is that something that the media portray wrong? Because I vaguely remember in like definitely not scientifically accurate shows, when someone has a seizure, the first thing they say is hold them down.
No, never. Never. You really need to let that person like give them space so they don't hit anything, but they need to be able to convulse, otherwise it will get more violent if you hold them down.
When was the last time that a seizure took you by surprise? Been a long time?
Yeah, I'd say a good few years.
Good. So we're safe today.
Yeah, my dog is actually, she's not trained at all, but
she just knows? Or
yeah.
How does she show? She
often scrapes at my legs until I get down on the floor, and sometimes she actually knows before, whoa, fuck off, before I do, that I'm gonna have a fit. You can laugh, it's fine. Yeah, so I've actually got videos where I've been like home alone and she's scratched me to the floor, so I sit down and I've actually set up my phone, because if I'm home alone I often need to know how long I've been fitting for in case like someone comes or the ambulance comes, so I always know to do that or set a timer. and she'll often come and lay on me while I'm fitting.
What kind of dog is she?
She's a little French bulldog.
Oh, so she's not really big.
No. Or she knows if I'm ever struggling to breathe, she actually licks my face, which like gets your senses to breathe again, which is completely incredible considering that she is not trained like at all. Yeah.
Ah. With your absent seizures, how long could they last? Seconds, minutes?
Yeah.
Hours?
Usually no. They usually are about like 30 seconds max. So yeah. Enough time for my family to play a few pranks on me.
Sure. I don't mean this as an insensitive question.
No,
at
it's
all.
fine.
This is purely just, I'm curious, so I don't mean to be ignorant.
Wow.
Have you ever used an absent seizure as a reason to get out of something? Or that if you just didn't pay attention to someone said, or like just used it as a scapegoat for something?
Potentially.
Okay, cool. Okay, I wasn't crazy for thinking that.
I feel like it's quite bad to admit, but like when you were like in school and like you genuinely had just zoned out and your teacher's like picking on you, and I'd be like,
sorry.
Yeah, sorry, miss. Don't know.
Sorry,
but to be honest, they often wouldn't. I think they knew about my conditions, so often they wouldn't actually like.
Would you ever like lean into it a little bit more because you knew they wouldn't ask?
Sometimes. I think the funny thing about school was like people would. Tics are very, very suggestible, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, because I've had an awful lot of experiences with like quite ignorant younger people that once they know I have Tourette's have been like, oh, you can say this word, or they'll try and get me to say a word, which I think people don't realise that like I've got to get, if you've made this like a regular tic for me, I've got to then get on the tube, I've got to go do my shopping, I've got to get to uni, I've got to like live my life saying that word that you think is really funny, and like that has a big impact, especially if it's something like homophobic or racist or something that like,
which I imagine the kids just jump onto.
Yeah, because that's the first thing that people like think, oh, like let me try and get that person to say it, and it's like people don't think about like the impact that that has on my life when they can just make me say that word, think it's funny, and then go home and carry on living their life. Well, it's like that tic can be something for like months then.
I imagine it can feel very dehumanizing, kind of like they're treating you like a parrot.
A bit, yeah.
Okay.
And it's a bit
Say
like,
this.
often it's hard to explain to people that like, yeah.
Especially if they're young, because they don't have a grasp on that kind of stuff.
Tics change as well. So you can either, I've always had the whistling, the eye blinking, the very typical like neck jerking, but my vocal tics definitely change from like month to month. So like I'll have a phrase or a sentence, like this month it's been cunts and I'll see you next Tuesday. Or twat. I've been calling everyone a twat like all the time.
Okay.
Or like, my first ever vocal tic was good bike riding.
Good bike riding?
Good bike riding, yeah.
Like good bike riding?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Like what?
Have you ever had any tics that were, they're not nice to feel, but any tics where the words were actually nice? Like you would just say nice things randomly to people?
Yeah, all the time. I love you, or I go to my little brother, pretty boy, pretty boy.
That's cute.
So yeah, you can definitely have like nice tics, which can be like really cute and sweet. But then you can also have like the horrible ones or the violent ones, so yeah.
But no tics feel nice anyway.
Sometimes certain tics can be really like satisfying, which can be quite like a nice feeling.
Like what?
That one, I love that. Yeah. It's just like,
just feels nice
because you have that urge, and then when you tick it, because it's quite like a gentle tick, whoa, or it feels quite satisfying in a weird way, because like it doesn't hurt. So like those tics aren't bad, I wouldn't say, and they don't impact me. So yeah. Okay,
they're definitely more preferable to the other ones. Yeah. Okay. We've talked a bit about the literal mental stuff you've had to do.
Tips.
Talk a little bit about we've touched on it, but the emotional side of everything that's been piling up throughout the years, basically.
Yeah.
Because I imagine a big sense that you may still sometimes feel, because I don't know what you're like in your day to day. I see you at your best in the gym.
Yeah.
I would imagine a big part of it has been feeling ostracized and like you're an outcast or looked upon differently. With the support system that is your mum and your best friend, is there anything you personally do to navigate those emotions?
I'm not afraid of saying I've been going to therapy for like pretty much my whole childhood, to be honest. So I think that's always been something that's really helped me deal with like everything that I've gone through, I think.
Is it a specialized therapist? Like, do you need to specialize in something like Tourette's and FND to treat someone in therapy with it?
I don't think so. No, I've gone through different specialists of like, often my consultant, there's like a very long list of like therapists that they have which help a lot of other kids. So like, yeah, so I think that's sort of where like I've gone down the route from. But I don't know, I've definitely found it easier to like help talk about it. And I won't lie, some days are definitely a lot harder mentally than others. And it's just like sometimes all you want to do is just like, sometimes all you want to do is just go to sleep for that day, but you're up ticking, and it's like you can't even do that sometimes. And it's like some days you do really wish that like it would all just go away at the click of a finger. But then I also think at the same time, like having these conditions and like going through what I've gone through has made me the person that I am today. And I don't think I'd have the qualities I am as a person if I hadn't gone through, like, I'm extremely resilient. I'd say, like, for my like GCSE exams, let's say, I had severe tic attacks throughout them. I had 5 seizures and I was in an exam room for 6 hours. But like, if I didn't have sat that paper, I would have got a fail, which meant I wouldn't have even been able to have gone to 6th form. Yeah.
I'm lucky now in uni. You're in uni, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's like, I don't know, yeah. You definitely go through phases where things get bad mentally and it's just like hard. But for me, like the mental health benefit of the gym especially has like just made like my life so much happier. It's sort of my way of like my brain being able to just like cope with things, I guess. Like it relieves a lot of stress.
When you were younger and the onset of everything was developing, did you ever think that you'd be in the position you are now? Like going to uni, having everything that you're able to do?
If you told me 4 years ago when I was in hospital that I'd be here where I am today, I would have told you fuck off, because I would have been like, no way.
And it wouldn't have been a tic.
No.
What does it feel like to look back on those 2 years of hospitalization? Do you feel like it was a different life, different person?
If I'm honest, I felt like I wasn't that present because I was unconscious most of the day. It sounds really weird, but like after a fit and before a fit, you're very disorientated. So it was like, if I was having up to like 10 to 15 a day, and then in between that ticking, it was like half my day I felt like I was spaced out of it, like more than I actually was me in a weird way. So I feel like, and then when I managed to go back to school for 6th form, it was a bit like, it's been a slow process, but it's sort of been managing to like get my life back on track. Yeah.
Your mum is your biggest support system.
Majorly.
And she's your best friend. And your family are involved in a Tourette's support group as well.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. It's called Tourette's Action.
Yes. So Tourette's Action is the charity, and they have support groups all throughout the country. But there wasn't actually one in London, surprisingly. So we decided as a family that we'd set one up. We run it in Chelsea and we do it once a month. And it is actually such a nice day. Like, I look forward to it every month, but yeah, see, sometimes when you take your brain like goes like completely out of it and you forget what you were saying.
What was I talking about?
Like, oh wait, let me go back to it, yeah. But so it's kind of cool because it's all ages, like completely. We've got people that are 4 to 5 years old and we have people that are 60 years old. But when you're with other people with Tourette's, it makes you tic like triple the amount. You pick up so many new tics. So the day is very exhausting and quite tiring, but it's something that like you gain an awful lot from, which I think is why it's so important. So yeah, we run it for the kids and their parents, which I think is like both, because yes, the child is suffering from Tourette's, but it really impacts your whole family. Like my little brother found it really difficult to like accept when he was little, because he would cry an awful lot and just be like, because he'd have to witness it all. He'd have to watch me punching myself in the face and screaming and shouting and like having seizures and things. And like, that's really difficult for someone at like the age of like, he must have been like 6 to process. And he used to get really upset over it. And I think that's like the impact. Yes, it impacts you, but it also impacts everyone around you. And like, they also have to like accept that like this is happening to their loved one and they can't really do anything about it. Like that was the hardest thing for my mum, not being able to take it away, which I think she found quite upsetting at times. Or like certain tics, you have to like, the violent ones for me, I found you have to feel the pain to satisfy the tic, otherwise it gets worse.
Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah, so she'd have to like watch me punch myself in the face and have bruised knuckles, bruised face, cuts, like, but she couldn't stop me even though she wanted to, because
you had to get it out.
Yeah. So I think that's why we run it, to like help. I think we've been through quite a journey as a family and we're like at a very good place of acceptance now. But we just sort of wanted to be able to help others. I think it's really nice that there's such an age variety, because we've got a man who's 60 and he actually has never had an official diagnosis of Tourette's, but he quite blatantly does have it. But he comes along and it's like, I think he's only been twice, but it's made him like, we've had emails from him say that he's managed to like accept, and it's made sense for his whole entire life, because he's never met anyone else with the same condition as him. And he's managed to like look back and think, cool, I wasn't alone from his whole life going through it. I think the older ones like me, or like older people, have been able to help the parents and the younger kids going through it. Like lots of advice of if like you're having a tic attack, or like you can put like neck pillows on, and if your muscles are sore, you can do this. And like at school, there's an awful lot of things that schools can put in place for kids with Tourette's, like letting them walk out the classroom if they're getting ticky, or extra things that they can put in place for like exams, like extra time, rest breaks, which a lot of times that like parents actually need to fight for in order to get the school to do those things for their kids. And if you don't know about it, often you don't know what you're fighting for. So I think that's like a great way that the older ones can help give advice to the younger ones and parents and things.
Has there ever been a kid or an adult or anyone else? Not dogs, just people. Has there ever been anyone that you've met of whatever age? Because it is a Tourette support group, so I imagine on some level you identify with them all.
Yeah.
Has there ever been someone that you met and you just immediately thought like they are a mirror of you? Like you saw yourself completely in them, or you saw them completely in you?
Not entirely. I think everyone's slightly different, and I think everyone has a different journey. I think there's definitely similarities that you've all faced, and like a lot of the time tics are really similar, so it's quite nice to like, I've had parents say to me like, do you know what, it's so nice to sit here and have a conversation with you and watch you tic, because it's like watching my kid in a weird way, and it's like nice to know that they're not alone. But I think, yeah, everyone's so individual, and like with having Tourette's, you are very likely to have comorbidity condition. So nearly everyone has something like ADHD, ASD. So everyone sort of has like other...
ASD is Asperger's?
Autism spectrum disorder. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine that the energy in the room, or wherever you run it, is a very nice one. Like the amount of relief they must all feel to be able to have this kind of space to let them or their kids or whoever just be themselves.
I think that's the thing. There's no masking, there's no hiding it, there's no suppressing. It's like you can come here, tic whatever, be who you are, and like there is no judgment at all, which is like a very nice space for a lot of people.
Has being part of the group changed your perspective on your own condition at all?
Well, I don't know if it's exactly answering that question, but I think looking at other people that are older than me and have gone through like, they've had a really, really rough time. I think I've been quite lucky. Like Tourette's is a lot more like known now, I guess, than what it was. And a lot of people had like horrific experiences of like bullying and like really tough times, which I think is something I've never actually had to go through. But it just makes you think like you're so grateful for like, yes, what I've been through is hard, but I think some people have been through a lot worse. I think there's always that to remember in a weird way.
So it's made you feel more grateful.
Yeah, I think it's like if they're getting through it, you can get through it too.
How have your conditions affected you with your friendships and relationships? Because I imagine it would play a part.
Yeah, I do find sometimes, well, when I was young, I would not say I had like a normal teenage life, I guess, because like most of it was like hospital. Yeah, but I think that's quite difficult for people. Like that, I'm very good with acquaintances rather than, I have a very small net of close friends, but I think we're very low maintenance friends, if that makes sense. Because
we love those.
I love low maintenance friends. But yeah, that's it. I think tits, well, cool. Tits, well, cool. Yeah, I think sometimes I can't be as present as some people. Like, I often don't like cancelling plans, but like every day is so different. I could wake up and have like a very severely ticky day, and I'll be like, yeah, sorry, like I'm not going to be able to come like out tonight or whatever we're doing. So I think that's definitely something that like, or if I've had a seizure and it's like I'm in bed for the next few days, it's just like sometimes it's quite difficult to like make plans all the time and stick to them, which I think for some people can be quite difficult, or like sometimes they won't hear from me for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I think I've managed to find that like the people that understand and took the time to accept it are like the people that like are the only people I really need in my life.
Yeah, and in a weird way, it's also a good way to filter out the ones that you don't need in your life.
Yeah.
Because if something like me cancelling because I'm having a fit, or I'm bedridden, or I'm in hospital, something like that leads to me cancelling plans, makes you upset with me, I don't want you as a friend.
I don't need you, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything, there are loads of things. What day-to-day thing or aspect or activity would a lot of people who are not in your position, who are like typically healthy, what would they take for granted?
Honestly, just everyday public things. Like being able to go on a walk, like sometimes even just in the park. Like I've had times where I've been out walking my dog with my mum and I've had this awful tic which is shouting ginger cunt or ginger ninja at everyone, and for some reason there was someone with ginger hair on every single road that I went down, and it got to the point where like it was bugging me so much that I ended up crawling through bushes in the woods to like get home, just because I wanted to like avoid people, because I was just so fed up of like shouting ginger cunt at people. Or just going to like the supermarket and being able to like get everything you want. You definitely get like a lot of weird looks or like things, and you can't necessarily like explain to thing is, you shouldn't have to explain to everyone like, oh, sorry, I've got Tourette's. I think you find yourself saying that an awful lot. It's like, sorry, I've got Tourette's. It's like you're apologizing for being you, but there's something also that you can't control. I think that can just get quite exhausting, which like people probably don't have to go every day with apologizing for who they are, I think, which is something that like people with Tourette's often do.
What about the things that are not in public? So let's say you wake up, getting ready to go to school or to uni one day.
Cooking, getting dressed. Literally really simple, mundane thing. Brushing your teeth. Like if you're ticky, you're literally stabbing your mouth when you're trying to brush your teeth, or like head jerking all the time, or cooking. Some days I can't cook because I can't be near like the hot stove or the knives because I'll stab myself. Or like.
Have you ever stabbed yourself before?
Thank God, no, but I've been very close to. I've chucked, like, eating at the dinner table, like, chucking forks, flinging food. Like, I've had glasses of water that I've literally chucked at, like, my dad's face before, like, when you're trying to eat a meal. Or It's just like really simple things, which I think people don't realise that like, oh shit. Or like even walking, if I've got leg tics that keep like making my knees drop, like, well, I'm in the house for the day.
Are there any daily practices that you do or stuff in the house that is purely for safety, like safety measures, kind of like baby proofing but Tourette proofing?
Yeah, I've definitely got, well, I play it by day to day, because like if I'm in the kitchen, now that I've gotten older, cooking's really calmed me down. But when I was younger, it used to like rail me up all the time. Like I used to throw things.
Cooking's nice now, it's peaceful.
I love cooking now, yeah, it's quite therapeutic. But definitely got blunter knives. If I want to drink, I'll put a lid on it with a straw, so I won't throw stuff everywhere. Yeah, that's sort of the main things that we sort of do. Or like my mum helps me out a lot on days where like things get difficult. Yeah.
Shifting a little bit towards representation, because a lot of the stereotypes that exist are just because of how it's represented, and people just don't know much about it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you know about Sweet Anita.
Yes, yeah.
She is, who is she for people that don't know?
She's like a vlogger or like who has Tourette's, and she sort of like, she does gaming, doesn't she? Yeah. And she sort of like records her sessions and like her tics and things and like posts them and talks about Tourette's, yeah.
Because it looks like she has similar tic habits to what you do.
Yeah. Wow.
There was I think she did, I'm pretty sure she did an interview or something with this guy called Anthony Padilla, who has now become a great interviewer, who used to be, this is before your time, do you know Smosh? Do you know who they are?
No.
Smosh was like when YouTube first started to exist.
Cool.
Which is the first time I felt old on my podcast ever. Smosh were like one of the original creators that ever went viral. And it was just these two dudes, Anthony and Ian, I think. And they just made silly, dumb, entertaining videos. Like fast forward a decade or two, he's now interviewing people, Anthony. And his approach is very nice.
Tits.
And he did one with Sweet Anita.
Yeah.
I didn't even really know that much about Tourette's. Once I discovered her, it's very easy to educate people because there's nothing really common sense about it. It's simply just because people are ignorant of it.
Yeah.
Like they just don't know. And a lot of the time there's judgment and people are mean and whatever. When you first found out about Sweet Anita, was there do you feel happy that there is some kind of representation out there? And she's a fairly big person in the gaming world. Does it make you feel any kind of way? That someone like her with those conditions is there and she's very successful, she's doing her thing?
Yes and no. I'm quite like, I love it and not at the same time. I think I know an awful lot. I go to like, with Tourette's Action, we have this thing called like a tic fest where loads of people with Tourette's go camping for the weekend together and we just do activities and things. It's like really sweet, but an awful lot of like TikTok influencers as well who have Tourette's, like that's what their page is about. I go to it a lot with them. So I know quite a lot of them. And it's like, I think it's amazing at creating awareness, but then at the same time, it doesn't always actually show the reality of it, because the videos that go viral are always the ones that like there's a funny tic, or like you're saying something quite taboo, or like you're doing things which make people laugh in a weird way, which yes, that is like, I'm very much like, I tell people, if you want to laugh with me, completely laugh. Like I do not mind, that's something I'm very open about. I think you've got to laugh to get through it. It's funny, like of course you're gonna laugh. But at the same time, I feel like sometimes their videos are edited, or like they make themselves, they're not doing it on purpose, but like because tics are so suggestible, you can really easily like make yourself like get ticky to like make content, which I think is sometimes that like, and you'll edit it together to make it quite funny and like quite commercial. And I think that's why there's such a stigma about it being so like comedic in a weird way, and not that, and those are all the videos that go viral because that's what people want to see, I guess. But like there's never finger licking good. People never like actually show.
I think to eat more KFC.
I don't really like KFC.
Finger licking good, that's their slogan.
Finger licking good. Tits. But well. But yeah, I think it's very tricky because when you are really severely ticky and like you are having tic attacks, or like you are having the worst times, it's very like vulnerable to record yourself. Like I would never ever want to record myself having a tic attack, and that is never something I'd want people to see. So I think it's really difficult because yes, they're spreading so much good awareness, but then at the same time, it's like sometimes the reality of what it's actually like to live with Tourette's isn't necessarily like correctly shown. Or like you do a video of like, so everyone thinks that you tic all the time, and it's like you don't. I can go a few hours without ticking like at all. I tic every day, but sometimes it's like not to the severity that like if you looked at me on a ticky day, right, and if I made content, you'd be like, oh yeah, she's got Tourette's. Like it's quite like the typical like, oh, she's got a, like heavy Tourette's. But then it's like sometimes, let's say if I recorded myself like on a non-ticky day, no one would want to watch it because it's boring. Because like, well, what's there to look at? Just a girl living her normal day-to-day life. Like people want to see the funny side because that's what makes it entertaining. So I understand it, but then at the same time, it's like that's why there is such a big misconception about Tourette's at the same time. So it's like, I think Anita's pretty good because she does show her like day-to-day life, but I think some other influencers necessarily don't as much.
It sounds like the problem is that they're glamorizing the parts that would be entertaining and make them famous, and they're even apparently like hyperinflating it and making themselves more ticky.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing because yes, part of your life is like that. Like that is a true representation of like what you are sometimes like, but then it also just doesn't show that sometimes when you're not like that in a weird way. Yeah.
In a sense, it's sort of inauthentic.
In a weird,
I guess.
Yes and no, yeah.
Would it, if there was, so you personally would not ever want to show the vulnerable moments where you have a tic attack. Do you think it would do good if people with Tourette's would be comfortable with sharing it, that they actually share it? Do you think that would push the social media stigma in a more positive direction?
Yeah, I mean, some influencers definitely do, like I've seen it. But then it's also sometimes like, it's a difficult watch to say the least, but yes and no, yeah.
Is it a difficult watch because you understand what that's like very intimately?
I think so, yeah. I think it's like, the feeling is really difficult to describe to people that don't go through it, but it's such like a horrible thing. Like I remember I've had ones that have lasted hours and I've had to go to like the hospital because of how severely I'm ticking. And it's just like, it's violent, it's painful, there's nothing nice about it. I think that's me at like my most vulnerable, which is like something my family has only ever seen. And yeah, as much as I love to spread awareness about it, I don't know, it's just something I don't think I'd be comfortable to share.
Fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. You don't have to become I forgot we have an actual doorbell now. That's loud. It's completely fine to still want to advocate for something like this, but you don't want to give your whole life to it. You still want to be private. You still want to keep whatever is sacred to you.
Yeah.
We'll finish on a more positive note. Just some quick rapid fire stuff.
There is a device coming out, which I was on a seminar for, and it's a watch that actually like, it's basically a treatment for Tourette's, which is like the first thing that they've managed to find. And it sends signals into your nervous system, which actually stop your basal ganglia malfunctioning.
The watch sends signals to your basal ganglia from your wrist?
Yeah, it sends electrical currents through.
And stops it from malfunctioning? Yeah,
stops you from ticking.
Fully?
Yeah, completely. And it's not, you don't get the sensation of suppressing. And when you take it off, it's not as if you've been suppressing, get like a sudden urge of tics. So you can choose when to wear it and when to not.
Is it a watch just out of convenience? Like, could they have made it in a different form? Or just because the watch is easy to put on and take off?
I think that, yeah. Has like pads and stuff, like silicone pads that you have to put just to stop like the signals damaging your skin and stuff. But yeah, and that's coming out in 2026.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could lead a global fitness class for one day where people all over the world with Tourette's and FND join in, what exercises would you have everyone do?
Oh, okay. Definitely weightlifting, obviously. Obviously. Oh, that's a good question. I feel like I'd take everyone through like a a pull and then a legs day at the same time.
Pull and then a legs?
Yeah.
Why pull?
Because backs are sexy.
Fair enough. What would you name that class? If you had to give it like a cool, like, you know, like body pump or whatever.
I feel like I need to create like some cool pun about like ticking and like.
Yeah.
Right, you're gonna have to help me out here.
You said pull and legs.
Such a weird combo.
Why not?
That's just because those are my favourite things to train.
Fair enough. The gains are ticking.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, we'll go with that. The gains are ticking.
I was thinking like some kind of like clock countdown, ticking down. The gains are ticking. Okay.
I like that. That's actually really good.
And if you could have any animal as your gym buddy, what would it be and what would its name be? Would it be your dog?
It'd probably be my dog.
What's your dog's name?
Luna.
Luna.
Yeah.
Like moon.
Yeah.
Like
she's like the blue colour. Yeah.
R at the end or?
No, A. So Luna.
Luna.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
How would you think she would be in the gym if you brought her as your companion? Let's say like there's no one there, no health, safety, whatever. You're just doing your gym session.
Yeah.
How would she behave?
Oh, she'd probably just sit there and watch me. Play in between sets.
Would you play with your dog in between sets?
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Okay, that is the end of everything I have. Do you have anything you want to say? Any passing notes? Any awareness you want to bring?
No.
I don't know.
That's it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming.
Of
And
course.
we will see you guys next time.
Bye bye.